Aloha, shalom. A little unexpected live tonight. So I'm hoping some of you will tune in and maybe have some questions for me, and I'll keep an eye on the comments so that I can answer as many questions as possible. The title of the video is Tarot Talk because you never know where the conversation is going to go. And since I see people tuning in now, I'm just going to repeat. If you have any questions for me, please write in the comments, and I'm going to try to answer as many as possible. So where I want to start the conversation is, what happens if you have a tarot deck and you accidentally leave a card out? Let's say you do a reading for yourself and you leave a card out, and then you go to do a reading tomorrow. You do the reading and then you realize, oh, I left a card out of the reading. So that card wasn't even in the deck. Now, did the reading, was the reading invalid? Was the reading wrong? Was it missing something because that card was left out? And for many reasons, the answer is no. And I'll explain why. And I think this is something a lot of you will relate to, especially if you practice divination or if you use tarot cards. You've probably done this before. And the first reason, the most important reason why the answer is no, why it doesn't change the validity of the reading, is because everything happens for a reason. Period. Everything happens for a reason. Nothing is outside of the perfection of divine order. If you believe that there is a divine order to things, how can you only believe that sometimes there is? Now, all of a sudden, you're going to forget that belief because, you're getting too in your head about it? Everything happens for a reason. You left those cards out for a reason. It doesn't matter. And think about it. When you did the reading, unaware that the card was left out, how did it go? Did you find meaning in the reading? Did you get what you were looking for? Did you receive at least some message of truth from it? And the thing is, if you truly understand what the symbols are trying to tell you in the cards, you will always find truth in the cards. Even if half of the deck was missing, it doesn't matter. It's all about perception. Everything is imagination. So, for example, even if you just have one card, if you truly understand what tarot is to be used for, or if you truly understand how to read into the symbolism of the tarot, then it doesn't matter. Even if you just have one card, you will find the relativity. Because these cards are given a place in the tarot, which means royal path. They're given a place in the tarot for a reason. They are images and symbols and characters that are representing fundamentally operative laws that are always in operation, always present, always working behind the scenes. They're timeless truths that if we look, we'll always find them. Not just one, not just two, but all of them. And what's more is that each card contains all of the others within them. Little kabbalistic side fact, within the very first letter of the Torah, tarot, Torah, within the first letter of the Torah is written the entire story. It's a code. And so this is the same way that the tarot works. Within one card is all the rest. And a lot of times people ask me, why do you even need the cards? And I've spoken about this before, and I'll speak about it again. You don't need the cards. They're characters that are representing angles of your own mind. But they are a very powerful tool because they draw that inspiration out of you. They give you a point of relativity. They give you an access point into your own story, because if we try sometimes to just figure out where we're at with our own mind, we're coming from an egoic perspective, or from a perspective that, even when we think we're not personalizing our story, we are. It's hard for us to depersonalize the story. And just to make sure, just to ensure that we don't allow our egos to sabotage or tell us we're at one point of the story when we're really not. We can choose to instead pull a card. It's never random. There's no such thing. Don't pick up the cards. Don't ever practice divination unless you understand there is no such thing as random. Because if you believe that there is such a thing as random, then you don't believe in order, that there's an order to all things. And we all know that there is an order back of all things. So if you don't get that, don't even bother picking up the cards. It's never random. Every single thing we think, say, and do is connected to the collective, interwoven with everything else. So, of course, when you pull a card, you're pulling it for a reason. This is not some like woo-woo concept. This is like a very real scientific understanding even. When you pull a card, it's for a reason. I'm trying to keep track of your comments here so I make sure that I see if anybody asks any questions. Really cool. I love your comments, and they're very supportive of what I'm sharing, so I appreciate. And so with that said, when you pull a card, you're pulling it for a reason, and basically it gives you an access point into the story, a point of relativity, okay? And they're all relatable. They're all relative. You could pull any card and find truth in it. So it's like, what's even the point, right? The point is in the self-reflection that it offers. Because self-reflection is always the key to finding answers. Look within. And a way to go deeper within is to put all the cards out on the table. It's like a mirror staring back at you. Right? So you pull a card, and let's give an example. No matter what you're asking about, right? You pull the High Priestess. She's the one that reminds us to go within and ask, what thoughts are we allowing in, and what thoughts are we going to allow to be expressed? How are we maintaining balance within? And this question of reflection is so foundational that you can apply it to any question that you ask. And in the application of it, you can go deeper. Okay, so for example, if someone asks, is this the right job for me? Am I on the right path with this job? And that's obviously such a common inquiry. And sorry, no, I'm not pulling cards tonight. So no personal readings. So someone asks, is this the right job for me? And the High Priestess comes up. It's simply a voice inside of yourself that wants to be acknowledged. It's that voice inside that's asking you to look at that specific inquiry, look at the question you're asking about, the job, and ask, in regard to that job, are you finding that it's supporting you maintaining this inner balance or not? So you're simply applying the question to that particular archetype. You're seeing through the eyes of that particular archetype, and it offers you, a very particular lens of perspective. And so through that lens, you gain insight. And you don't have to stop there. In fact, you shouldn't. The most esoteric way of accessing the deepest initiation of the cards is by using whatever you pull simply as the starting point. And then from there, you progress to the next archetype and the next, and you ask each one of them, who's really just you, the same question, and they'll all give you a different answer, and together they form the whole answer. Okay, I'm seeing your questions. If all is connected and nothing is random, what responsibility is left to us? So there is an underlying pattern to things, a sequence to things, okay? That is 100% true. And that sequence is written in our DNA. It's this original blueprint. So that is the predictability of our paths. But the details of how it unfolds and the different faces and expressions that it comes through as for you to reflect upon, for you to meet along your path, only bring you back to that space of truth behind it all in a deeper way. So that's the point of this life. There is a predictability to it, yet the way that we return to that truth every time is with greater perspective and with greater light, with greater wisdom. That's the point. Thank you for your question. So the way that I teach tarot is very different from a lot of the way that modern teachers will teach tarot. For example, somebody said to me today, I announced that my children's book, the manuscript for it, is done. And somebody said, please don't lead the children astray, like lead them to Christ or something like this. And there were a lot of assumptions in that statement, you know, and I understand, because the way that tarot is presented to the world is highly perverted, misunderstood. But I can assure you, I'm not leading any child astray. And for example, there's a quote in the book, because it's just an affirmational story. It's like affirmations to walk the child through those different archetypes, to activate the different archetypes within them. And so one of the quotes is, I'm here to bring heaven to earth. Is that not a teaching of the Christ? On earth as it is in heaven. I don't see any disagreement there, you know, between any cultures or any faiths, any religions. I don't see a difference. I think that we all have that common knowing that that is our purpose here, to bring above and below together, to bring heaven to earth, to be the vessel for that mission. And so the reason I brought up that example is because, again, I'm here to teach tarot in a different way. I don't believe that we just pull the cards and it's just what's on the table. That's an access point for us to then continue the story. Okay, so for example, like I said, you ask a question, the high priestess comes through, you consider her perspective, and it's a very specific way of looking at the question, and so you come up with an answer. And that can be very enlightening, and that's amazing. And then you can go deeper. You can, and again, you don't need cards for this. If you learn the archetypes beyond the cards, if you understand these characters as they exist inside of you, you form a bond with them, and you activate them within your own consciousness and with your own being, within your own heart, then you can invoke them at any time. Okay, so you could keep going with pulling the cards, or you can just, after educating yourself about them, invoke them within your consciousness, within your mind. And you could say, all right, now that I looked at it through the high priestess's eyes, because I pulled that one up randomly, I'm now going to ask the emperor, or I'm going to ask the death card, the reaper, or I'm going to ask the conqueror, aka the chariot, or the tower. I'm going to ask each of these archetypes and look through each of these lenses and answer my same question from all of those perspectives. So you don't need the cards, but they provide an opportunity to choose an access point that is not by random, but by trust and faith that it's going to be the perfect starting point. That you know when you choose it, when you flip that card by random, that it's not really random at all. That it's you getting out of your head, surrendering, and choosing a card, knowing that according to the perfection of the plan, you're going to pull the one that is the priority, focus. Beyond your ego's desire to choose this one or that, you allow through that surrender the universe to choose that card for you, again, as an access point. And then from there you ask the other archetypes. That is my understanding of how to use the tarot in the deepest way. How to connect to the tarot in the deepest way. This is not how tarot was used in ancient times, where you just sit down with somebody, pay them a bunch of money, they pull a few cards and they give you one answer. The tarot is known as the royal path. And that's life, and we're all walking that path. So it's about understanding the different allies that we have within us, which are just different perspectives of the mind, being able to understand them deeply, to be able to invoke them at any time, in the appropriate moments. And each of these archetypes, each of these characters in the cards are representing really primordial energies. They're the building blocks of all reality. And it can become very difficult to understand them. We don't know how to relate to them, how to connect. But the thing is, it's all mind. When you form an understanding of these cards, when you form a bond with them, you activate a neural pathway that connects you directly to these otherwise inaccessible sources. Through understanding and through compassion, through building a relationship with those characters, we then gain access to their frequencies, to be able to embody them, to allow them to manifest through us, through our senses. And the reason why they're painted as these characters, in these relatable symbols, is because symbolism is the universal language. Everyone understands symbolism, even if it's not on an intellectual level. We feel when we see these symbols. Colors, shapes have an effect on us. And they go straight to the subconscious. They bypass your ego. They bypass your human thinking and touch straight to the depths of your subconscious. They go right in there. This is why the tarot is so powerful and why so many people fear it. But instead of fear, we can have understanding and use it with awareness and with compassion and with purpose for God, for Creator, for Source, whatever you want to call it, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be a sacrilegious thing. It doesn't have to be a sinful thing. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. Remember, everything, when we give it a sacred purpose, when we use it for the sake of all creation, for the sake of the Creator, it sanctifies it. It consecrates it. So when we do that, then what else is there to fear? Just like separation, we look at it as this terrible thing, it's such a bad thing, but there's a reason that concept was even created. We separate so that we can return again stronger than ever before. Distinction and separation is beautiful when we give it a purpose, when we use it to progress on our shared path as one collective consciousness. And again, the reason why it's in the form, the tarot is in the form of relatable symbols and characters, a lot of them appear human, is because without that relativity, without us being able to relate, we can't access those neural pathways that connect us to those sources of energy. We need to have an image, just like God created us in the image, just like we were created in the image of the divine. We need to be able to relate to those concepts. And thus, the tarot was created. These relatable symbols and forms and beings. So we could say, when I look at this being, who looks like me, I understand it more. I can start to connect to the concept. These cards are showing us what it looks like to be having a human experience and embodying universal truth. These characters are showing you what it looks like when above and below are combined, when nature embodies universal truth. It's giving us a reflection so we can say, hey, that's what I look like when I embody this archetypal wisdom, when I embody this particular truth. I know there's a lot of information in this video, so I'm grateful that so many of you are interested, because it's, I know I talk a mile a minute and it's some heady stuff, but I appreciate your presence, and I'm scrolling through your comments now so that I don't miss your questions. I see Robert as being so supportive and saying there will always be critics and cynics and naysayers. Ignore them and follow your heart. For sure. And I think that, 99% of the time you just ignore that. But that 1% of the time you use it. You use that hate or that ignorance as an example so that we can all grow. And so my reason for coming on here is to share with you a deeper perspective that some people are quick to judge, and because they do, not that we're upset about it, but because they do, then they're not gaining that deeper insight that's available to all of us. And so, if there's anybody that was holding back from expressing their fear of the tarot, for example, this video would be super helpful. Let's see. Everything is mathematically linked. Yes. Everything is numbers. Yes. How can we best embody an archetype? Daniel is asking. I would think it would need to be consistent over time. That's a super good question. And then Carlos will go to your question after. Well, my book is all about how to embody the archetypes, the Royal Path 1, and then the Royal Path 2 goes deeper into the elemental suits, how to connect with the elements and how to embody those, and how to go even deeper with the process from the ace to the king, right? Because you go from the ace to the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. And so it talks about why there's a process there and how to move through it. So that's what my books do. So if you want to know more, reach out and I'll give you a little bit of an answer to your question now, since we're here. How do we best embody an archetype? I would think it would need to be consistent over time, Daniel says. You're absolutely right. The more you go deeper with embodying each of the archetypes, the more you fortify that bond and that neuro pathway which literally manifests as a bridge in your reality between you and all those things in creation, in manifested life, that are embodying that energy. You literally begin to connect with life in a deeper way through that particular lens that you're cultivating. It's a relationship. So yes, the more you reflect on the high priestess archetype within you, the more you reflect on the emperor archetype within you, the more it's going to serve you and serve you, the larger one you, of which we're all a part. The more you cultivate that frequency, the more you become familiar with it. It's like family, right? You welcome it in, or you activate it within yourself because it's already there. You just activate it more deeply. Deeper understanding means deeper compassion for yourself and for the world. So yes, of course, it goes deeper and deeper. As well, each of these archetypes represent different virtues. And you always hear that we are here to be like God. We're here to be like the Creator. Also known as the all-virtuous light. Also known as compassion. So that all-virtuous light of compassion is the light of the Creator, or the original light of creation, right? And then when it broke up, right, goes through the prism and breaks up into everything that you see here in our reality, right? It's like that white light goes through the prism and becomes all the colors. Those colors are like the virtues. The white light is like compassion. And so as you cultivate a relationship more deeply with each of the archetypes, you cultivate a relationship with each of the virtues. And so that light of whatever virtue you're focusing on grows within you, within your heart, within your mind, within your being, and within the world. So that light only grows and grows and grows, right? Then from there, let's say you cultivate the light of all the different virtues or all the different archetypes. What happens is they light up inside of you in a synergistic way, in a harmonious way. And together, as you cultivate a relationship with each of the virtues, all of the virtues, all of the archetypes, they work together in a way that they start to reflect the all-virtuous light of compassion, because the fragments come together to form that greater light. So you start to cultivate honesty, for example, right? And this is a virtue that is very obvious with the justice archetype. Justice, aka balance. Honesty is obviously a major aspect of that archetype. So you look for every opportunity to be honest, especially when it's hard for you to be, right? Because that's where we have the most opportunity to create, from darkness, the light. So you would look to as many opportunities as possible to activate the light of honesty to be expressed through you. And the more you do that, the more easy it gets, the more fluid it gets, the more graceful it gets, the more you can recognize honesty as you're tuning yourself to it, right? The more you can recognize honesty within yourself and within the world, and equally so, the more you'll be able to recognize dishonesty within yourself and with the world. And the process is never ending. It goes deeper and deeper. It's really eternal. So this is a loaded question, as you can see. Just as the process of growing the light of the virtues is eternal, so is the process of growing the light of the archetypes. It's one process. They're the same. So the more we allow that light to be expressed through us, the more it just becomes a graceful dance. I hope this is making sense to at least one of you. I'm going back now because y'all have been commenting here, and I want to make sure I don't miss Carlos's question. Carlos says, how does one stop chasing and ground myself? And there's always a particular archetype to look to. So how do you stop chasing and ground yourself? A very grounding energy would be somebody we already just mentioned, the Emperor. And this is because number 4, the Emperor is number 4. 4 is about foundation, structure, grounding. Think of like a table, right? It has 4 legs and you could build upon that. So the Emperor is very grounding. It's the one in you that activates that grounded nature. So for example, you can use the cards, right? Because again, you don't need the cards, but this video is to show you why they're a helpful tool. You can take the Emperor out of the deck or Google the Emperor archetype, and there are many different depictions out there. Okay, you could go to the classic Rider-Waite, you could go to the ancient Egyptian art, or you could go to some alternative artist's depiction of the Emperor, and just meditating on or gazing upon this card, your subconscious will open up to receive its message without you needing to analyze it from an intellectual perspective, okay? The colors in the card, the shapes, the symbols, the ram's horns, the throne, the way he's sitting, his legs making the number 4. If you want to go deep, ask me about my tarot course. I have a whole video course that I could send your way. It's privately stored in a Google Drive folder. Super easy, 1, 2, 3. You could get an individual class, or you could ask me for the whole course. It's the whole major arcana. So that's the thing, all these different symbols in the Emperor card, just looking at them can help you become grounded without you needing to know so much why or overanalyze it. In fact, overanalyzing is what gets us materialistically entangled and distracts us from the actual purpose of activating that wisdom within us. For example, you could think of your own vision of what you look like if you were grounded. But it's actually going to be more efficient to take a simplified version of what it looks like in the form of the Emperor, for example, because it bypasses your ego and all of those extraneous thoughts that you might have, and gives you a simple, direct image to meditate on. That's how powerful the tarot is. You don't have to think, how do I do it? Just gaze upon this image, and it will implant that message within you. In fact, it will connect directly. It will speak directly to that archetype within you and pull it out of you and draw it out of you. Way better than you could have done from your little human story. Because what happens is we create our own vision of what we think the Emperor is, right? And we end up overcomplicating it and putting in a whole lot of symbols into that vision. And those symbols for us are actually connected to past experiences. Maybe not even our own. Maybe past experiences that we saw of someone else, that we were witnessing their path, a family member, a friend, maybe something in a TV show. And so it gets really convoluted. The message gets convoluted and distracted. But if we just look at the Emperor card and know that those symbols and colors are going to activate or light up that part of our minds that's going to ground us, in your case, then that path is much more straightforward and foolproof. I hope that answers your question. Okay, and then Carlos is asking, how do I go from chasing to attracting? Just oneness consciousness, being aware of who you really are, what your nature really is, the nature of the universal laws, how they work, how we are operating within this field of law, and we're also made up of those same elements. We're moving through a field that contains elements that actually make up the fabric of who we are. And so that's a very kabbalistic answer, but the truth is, if you want to learn how to stop chasing things and attracting things, this is all universal law. I could make a whole video just about that. In fact, I have some videos about the law of attraction on my YouTube channel. So Carlos, you're welcome to check it out. youtube.com/Rebecca Magic. You can search on YouTube Rebecca Magic Law of Attraction, and I'm pretty sure those particular videos will pop right up. If you have trouble finding them, just reach out and ask. Another suggestion for those of you who are interested in that topic is just reading the Kabbalion, or diving into Hermetic law, or Gnosis, Gnosis. These are some helpful topics to research if you're interested in learning how to stop chasing and start magnetizing. Something that comes up while I'm saying that, because as you all know, tarot is my passion, and this is a video about tarot talk. Card 11, and I don't mean in modern tarot, because there's a manipulation there. Again, there are videos about what I'm talking about on my YouTube channel and an explanation in my books. But the proper card 11 is connected to the strength archetype, known in ancient times as the enchantress. The reason why the character on that card, is a woman is because it's speaking to our feminine nature. If we want to attract rather than chase, we have to understand the message of this archetype, Arcanum 11, Strength, the Enchantress. Our power is in our magnetism and our receptivity. Because when we are in our feminine, we are the receptive force, not the masculine active force. We are in the receptive force. And there's no greater power than the all-powerful source of creation. And in order to open up to that, we need to be in our feminine receptive form, right? So that's just a little hint as to understanding, where our true strength lies in attracting anything. And the ultimate thing that we should wish to attract to ourselves, to magnetize toward ourselves, is that love, light, power of God, of the source of creation, of the creator. And when you take it all the way to that understanding, then you realize, oh yeah, how do I stop, like Carlos said, how do I stop chasing, start attracting? Maybe it's your feminine element that you need to start redefining or looking at. Maybe there's some aspect of you that wants to bring balance to your polarities, and so you need to look at how you're embodying your feminine. How are you embodying more of your receptive force so that you can open up to whatever it is you want to manifest? Knowing that whatever you want to manifest is ultimately going to come from opening up to that power that is not yours. It's the one's. And in order to attract that, to open up to that, you need to be in your feminine element. So that just came through. Why 13 cards to get to the king? Domenico is asking. So again, I talk about that in my book, The Royal Path 2, Journey into the Minor Arcanum. The kings, and I'm just going to keep this short because if you really want to go deeper, that's why I wrote my book, right? Poured my heart out in that book. It took time to write that so that these questions could be answered at your own pace, of course. The king is the masterful element of the particular suit being pulled. So you have, the cups, the swords, the wands, and the pentacles. Those are, when you pull a certain suit, it's telling you, okay, you're focusing on the spiritual dimension or the emotional dimension or the mental dimension. So right there, whatever the suit is, it's giving you a hint as to what area of your life you need to focus on first. The king is reflecting that part of us that is masterful within that suit. So the king is the goal. The king contains within him all the previous cards that brought you there. So the ace all the way to the king are really one, just as all the cards of the deck are really one. But the king is the one we can see as the one in us who goes through an initiation, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically, and makes it to a new level of mastery. The work is never done, but the king is where we want to arrive to, a space where we can, because the king is the one who acts. The queen comes right before him. She's the feeling and the heart. And he's the one who acts on the feeling and the message of the heart. You see, so you go from the ace where you initiate a certain lesson within one of those dimensions. Maybe it's a mental lesson. Maybe it's an emotional lesson, a heart lesson, right? That's the ace. And then you go through the steps to get to the king. Again, if you want to know more, it's in my book, Royal Path 2. Just seeing if there are any other questions I missed here. Really cool, you guys are mentioning crystals and things that help you to ground your energy. And I just want to say, you can pull up that crystal in your mind's eye. You don't need to go get it. You don't need to get anything. There is nothing outside of you that is more powerful than your mind and your imagination. Look up Neville Goddard if you want to go deeper with that, if you're into podcasts, lectures, things like that. Neville Goddard, Goddard. He's all about this philosophy of everything being imagination. And it is an ancient philosophy. It's a Hermetic understanding. The first principle of Hermetics, you'll hear me say this all the time, is the principle of the mind. So you can invoke that crystal within your mind's eye. What does the color of the crystal have to say about that? Because 9 out of 10 times, because sometimes it's the properties of the crystal, like the physical properties, other than the color, like the way it's formed, for example. But like 9 out of 10 times, the color is the main reason why someone will say, this crystal is good for this. Like, for example, turquoise is like, they say is good for the throat chakra, or Larimar, good for the throat chakra, because it's blue. So everything can be categorized beyond crystals into colors, into numbers, into sounds, into frequencies. So consider that. Simplify. Use colors as your ally. You don't need anything to see that color within your imagination and to connect to its properties and frequency. So really, 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 until you form that true faith in your mind, the power that you hold within your mind, which is one with your heart. Okay, because I'm talking about the heart of the mind, where those two meet as one. Until you really lock in that faith in your own inner power, forget the crystals. Forget it all. Because until you have that faith in your own mind and in its connection to the one universal mind, you're not going all the way. And you don't need anything. That's the amazing thing. You don't need a penny. So why would you not want to take that direct route? I'm going to see if there's any more questions here. Awesome question. AJ asks, how might the Emperor card be viewed through the lens of the Fool card? In my book, Royal Path 1, it first gives you the storyteller's activation. And I actually read this as a preview of my book on my YouTube channel. So you can go there and get a free preview of the first chapter of my book. And it gives you a little preparation before you receive the story. And then it goes into the Fool. And I mentioned that the Fool is the lens through which you have to see all the other cards. The Fool in ancient Egypt wasn't even a part of the deck, because it was sort of like an occult key that one would need to find within oneself before even studying the Royal Path, Tarot. And you could see it just in the number of the Fool. It's 0. It's the one through which you want to see the rest. So, for example, you might look at the Emperor card. AJ's asking about the Emperor. And there's a lot of Emperor energy tonight. You may look at the Emperor card and go, all right, I see that the Emperor is the masculine aspect in me. And it's grounding. It's, creating a form for spirit to enter. And then you might stop there. But if you see it through the lens of the Fool, it reminds you, all right, I have to connect the wisdom of the Emperor to my foundational wisdom that everything is connected. I have, the power of the Creator within me. I'm never separate from this. I always trust in my path. Until you have that foundational understanding, you can't access the fullness of the initiation in any of the other cards. For example, if we don't have the Fool consciousness first locked in, there may still be a certain amount of doubt or fear, which is going to limit us from, again, accessing the deepest wisdom in the following cards. So, for example, if you're not remembering that everything's connected, you're going to view the Emperor from separateness consciousness. And there's some part of you that believes that you're separate from that archetype. Or there's doubt in you that you could even connect to that archetype. You have to have the Fool locked in if you really want to look at all the other cards more deeply. For example, another example, in the Fool is the little white dog at his feet, right? And this is, Creator's always at your side, loyal. If you look at the Emperor without that remembrance, then you may think that you're in it alone, and you may start to embody more of the negative side of the Emperor, which will lead you to, a perversion of power, a lack of benevolence, which is a major necessary component to activating the light side of the Emperor, for example, right? So it leaves out certain things when you don't have that Fool locked in. The white rose in the Fool's hand represents the purity and innocence that is necessary, again, to unlock those deeper initiations hidden in the other cards. If you don't carry that white rose with you, for example, along the royal path, and you don't apply your innocence and your purity to those other embodiments, then you will embody them in a less than innocent way. You'll embody them in a more perverted or misunderstood way, okay? So you want to take those tools that you get through the Fool's wisdom with you along the entire royal path. As you move through the path, you remember all the other cards are still within you. I love this question. Okay, Daniel, you have some good questions, man. You're asking, would you agree that the degree to which we can be present is directly related to the degree we can do any of this? Oh, for sure. Because presence, like we just said, we're talking about the Fool, presence is an aspect that comes with the Fool archetype. The Fool is present because he's trusting. When he knows he's connected to Source and he trusts in the divine plan, right? Like he's about to jump off the cliff. We don't know if there's like another little ledge right there just because we can't see it in the card. So he's trusting. And until we have that level of faith and that level of trust, we can't be fully present because there's some part of our awareness that still feels separate, which creates doubt, which creates fear, which creates hesitation, which keeps us from being that Fool and jumping into our path, even though there are treacherous mountains ahead. When we're in fear, we're paralyzed, we're afraid to even take the first step. So absolutely, I do believe that the degree to which we can be present is directly related to the degree we can do any of this. In fact, I'll put it in other words. The more we can understand, the more we can actualize the light of the virtues, which is the light of the archetypes, through us, through our thoughts, through our voices, and through our actions, the more present we can be. The more we can get out of life. That's why it's called tarot, royal path, because it's all one path. And if we want to sanctify it, light it up, right? Everything that you think of when you hear the word royal, then the more, this is obviously offering that help. When you learn about these archetypes and you learn about how this alliance lives inside of you and you have access to it in any moment, of course that's going to help you make the most out of life. We got to learn how to capitalize on these energies in a way that is for the sake of all creation. That's why I'm making this video, to show you guys that it doesn't have to be a scary thing. The tarot is a tool. For example, we have all these archetypes within us, right? What does that mean? We have all these different perspectives, angles of the mind. And whether you like it or not, the truth is we're continuously embodying one perspective or another, either unconsciously or consciously. And the point of the tarot, providing this tool, is to educate you on the different parts of your own self and the different angles of your own mind, so that you can walk with awareness and choose to consciously direct your free will toward the pursuit of embodying the most efficient energy in any given moment. So for example, it's like this wheel is turning in your mind, right? And in any given moment, that wheel stops and we express through that angle. It's like the Wheel of Fortune. It just stops in this one point and then we express through there. And most of us are doing this unconsciously. We're just walking around embodying all the archetypes in a totally disorganized manner with zero awareness. But the tarot was this awesome esoteric tool that summarized all the different archetypes into this system of organization, into a strategy, so that it can become accessible to us to be able to call upon this archetype or that archetype with our will. So that instead of just walking around unconsciously embodying this one or that one at any given moment, we can pause and be present. And from that observer's perspective that's only accessible through presence, we can choose, you know what? Now that I know the archetypes deeply and I feel them within me, I know them as one with me, and I know they're there as my allies, I want to call upon this one right now because I know that this is the one that is most appropriate. Or I'm going to call upon this archetype right now because I know that this is the one that's most appropriate. It helps us to depersonalize our story, act with awareness instead of just reacting. We can respond instead of react. Right? So all these things contribute to more presence. And so we become more empowered because we feel sort of a sense of control in a life where we don't really have control. There is an aspect, like I said, that's written. There's a... Sorry if I go muted. I'm receiving a call right now if you guys can't hear me. I'm going to scroll down and see if anybody lets me know that. I'm going to wait a moment. Let me know that y'all can hear me. And this is a kabbalistic understanding, okay? So there is this sequence that we all live by. There's a pattern that's underlying all things. And so sometimes we can feel a sense of a lack of control. And in Kabbalah, you learn that there are ways that we can empower ourselves to take hold of the wheel, so to say, through education of our connection to nature and to the universe. We can learn about the laws of nature and the universe, how we're one with them, and through that knowledge, we can choose how we want to embody them or how we want to respond to them. That's the beauty of the human experience. It's a beautiful thing. And so it gives us a sense of control. So learning about the archetypes, learning about this wheel that's spinning in our mind, usually we unconsciously stop the wheel and express through there. Instead, when we learn about the different parts of that wheel and we choose to pause it at this moment or that to express through a particular archetype of choice, it gives us that sense of empowerment, of confidence, as though we're taking the wheel, literally. It's like Ezekiel's wheel for those of you who know the story. It's like we're taking the wheel and we're taking accountability. We are then consciously participating in this universal process, not just our own little process, but a process that is all-encompassing, connected to all creation for eternity. And wow, that's not just empowering, it's empowering. It activates a fire in you that will burn on forever. It's not just like, I got an A on this test and I feel confident now. It's like, whoa, I'm locking in wisdom that is lighting my spirit up in a way that can never be extinguished. So that's what the tarot offers you, and so much more. And if it was just that one thing, would it not be justified then to start studying these archetypes? And you don't have to be a master practitioner of divination. We're all divining. We're all divine. It doesn't have to be so complex. And wait till you see my children's book. It shows you just how simple it can be. It's not that complex. The study of tarot is for anyone. Tarot is not just learning about a deck of cards and picking some author's, book to read about their interpretations and living by their book. It's about understanding that you are an open book. You are the living word. You are the tarot. The archetypes are within you. Tarot is the royal path of life, which we are all walking, every man, woman, child. And so it would benefit all of us to learn about the tarot, which is the archetypes, which are the virtues, in a relatable form so that we can start activating them within us to do what that they came here to do. This is why I believe that in school we should teach archetypal awareness and archetypal activation. It's a no-brainer to me. I think it's the most useful subject. I think that kids should be learning this right away. Honey, there are allies within you that you can call upon to help you get through any challenge. You are not alone. For example, when you're struggling with being honest, instead of getting wrapped up in the details of your little story, that your ego wants to be so loud about in your head, to hurt you and pull you down and make you entangled in your little story. Instead, you could say, which archetype deals with honesty? I'm going to go straight to that one and I'm going to embody it. And to embody it doesn't have to be complicated. Again, like I said, that's why the tarot is a powerful tool. It's visual. So you can get out of your head and stop worrying about how am I going to embody more honesty? And instead you could pick up the justice card, pick up the cards that show you what your reflection looks like when you're embodying that honesty. And all of the colors that you're looking at, all the symbols that you're looking at will instantly start to activate that frequency and that energy within you. And all you need to do, rather than your old approach of overthinking and overanalyzing it, is simply gaze upon those symbols. Meditate on them with focus. Hold them in your mind's eye till it fills your awareness and pushes everything else out. And then that light will be cultivated in you and move through you and do what it is that you were struggling before to do. You know, that whole concept of give it up, give it to God. Well, the tarot is one way to do that. Give it up, give it to the allies, give it to the archetypes who are the faces of the one face, of the one creator. They're aspects of the one creator. They are virtues as pieces of the all virtuous light. Remember that. Let me see if I missed any other questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up here. Gosh, you guys are amazing. Goddard is Goddard, if you want to look it up. I see some people asking. Okay, I'm reading a question here. Once you have true faith in heart and mind, how could one, this is Mia's question, how could one then tap into the willpower to follow through the mission of one's path? That's an awesome question, and I'm just going to show you how the tarot directly answers that. You have the Fool, which is addressing what you said in the first part there. Once you have true faith in heart and mind, that's the Fool speaking. Then, how could you tap into the willpower to follow through? That's literally the Magician, the card that comes next, the number 1. The Fool is 0, then you have 1. Will is the key word associated with the Magician. The Magician is then the one who takes that faith and does something with it. And if you want to know more, again, it's in Royal Path 1. I have a whole, I believe it's an 1.5 hour video on the Magician alone, so reach out to me if you want to go deeper with this. But just to give you a summary, he has one hand pointing up and one hand pointing down. He literally looks like the letter Aleph. There's the Hebrew letter Aleph hidden in him. One hand is pointing up, and that's his connection to source that he remembers as the Fool, right? I'm connected to the source. And then one hand pointing down, showing that he's the bridge for that energy to be manifested through him and come down to this reality. So it's like, okay, I recognize that I'm connected to the source. I have faith in that. Now what do I do with it? I be the bridge for something to be made of that light. And the ultimate understanding of that is we are here to bring heaven to earth. We all have the Magician within us. The Magician is the active masculine element that does something with that faith, with that light. And what do we do with it? That's determined by your own individual path. Each moment as you're faced with opportunities, no matter what the opportunity looks like on the outside, you return to that Magician who knows, all right, I'm looking at this opportunity through the eyes and perspective of the Magician. I'm going to apply the question to my purpose. What do I do in this moment? Well, how can I bring heaven to earth through this opportunity? How can I draw in the light of the Creator into myself and express it through my senses? How can I make the most of this opportunity in that way, knowing that my purpose ultimately is to bring heaven to earth? Then every opportunity, no matter what it is, becomes an opportunity for you to bring heaven to earth. And you will know that it's not the right opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to say no when there's no reason for it, like when there's no purpose in it. Okay? The Magician also tells you that when you face an opportunity, you'll know to say no if it has no purpose for you. There's no opportunity to bring heaven to earth there. There's no opportunity to bring more light. And don't be fooled. Mundane opportunities like, a new job or a project, if you really look, there's often a way to utilize it as a ritual to draw in the light of the Creator and allow it to come through you in that job. Maybe there's a person who needs to witness your path and will be inspired by you. Maybe there's some darkness within that project that's already there that is calling you in to heal it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's simply an opportunity knocking so that you could self-reflect on, hey, you know what, this is not aligned with my ultimate purpose. And so many people say yes to opportunities that don't at all actually offer us the opportunity to do what we really came here to do, which is bring more light into the world. If it's not in some way giving you that opportunity, then it's not an opportunity you should take on. So, fear is natural for us to overcome. Richard says, fear is natural for us to overcome, so to speak. Absolutely. It's also written in the tarot. Card 6 to 7 is the challenge to the chariot. That's why we're here. Without the limitations, there's no transcendence. Without the challenge, there's no chariot. There's no opportunity. There's no growth. Of course. Fear is not something to fear. Fear is a tool. Again, nothing is bad if we give it a purpose, if we use it for the sake of the Creator. How can we, for example, use this fear that I'm feeling to deepen my awareness of myself? Because it's all one self. So this whole path of life is about self-understanding, self-realization, self-actualization. And we can certainly use fear as one of the most powerful tools for self-reflection, realization, actualization. Get to know ourselves better through our fears. They speak to us. They tell us some of the greatest secrets about ourselves. Whew, you guys are going here. All right. Now that I didn't miss any questions, I'm going to wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to sit with me tonight. I'm trying to just flow with the inspiration when I feel it so that we can just come on here and, like the tarot, find an access point to then jump into the fullness of the story. So thank you, all of you Royal Path Masters. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to seeing you in our private groups on Facebook, the Royal Path and Shabbat Crew. If you guys didn't know, I do one free reading every week for the collective consciousness using the tarot and my personal custom Hebrew deck that I made myself, because the Hebrew alphabet works the same way as the tarot. I do that every week. The next one is going to be on Wednesday for the full moon. It'll be Wednesday evening. And then every Friday night, I go live in Shabbat Crew for the Ancient Melody recitation of the candle lighting prayer. And we do that together. We have members from all over the world who come to unite there, so it's really awesome. And I also give an explanation of the current Torah story every week from a kabbalistic or mystical perspective. And if you're in one group and not the other, I encourage you to join both because it's a very cool synergy, and you'll see how the tarot readings always align with the Torah story, because tarot, Torah. I'm here to bridge the two. I love you guys. Thank you for all of your love and support. And if you have any more questions, please send them to my inbox. I'll either get to them when I can, or I'll use them as inspiration in my next video. Thank you so much. Aloha.